Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to WLTKDB Let's Talk Radio. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. We are having our interview series today, and it's with the wonderful Mari Cartagenova. And so we're going to be diving into her life, her journey, and you can have a chance to ask questions about what we're talking about and ask advice. And so this is the wonders of the show. Wonderful people coming together to share experience. And so we always have a topic that we ignite from, that we open up the show with. And I really wanted to talk about intention, and I wanted to focus on crystals or other things that maybe we use in our everyday lives or we don't use in our everyday lives. And the reason I wanted to dive in was because I love crystals, but I don't think I use them necessarily like other people use them. And maybe I'm wrong within that. So I have an enthusiasm for crystals because I think they're beautiful. I have enthusiasm for crystals because growing up, my mom knew a lot about like gems and jewelry. And so there's always books on all these different stones. And I kind of had this catalog in my mind of like what this color was and that color and what stone linked to this and that and all these options and all these beautiful, wonderful rings and necklaces. It was just, I don't know. It sounds funny, but like QVC and HSN were always on, and I'm sure some people are familiar with that. Hello, Jessica. Hello, and yeah, it's just like constant roundabout options to look at. Actually, like these wondrous pieces. So, on one hand, it amps up the vibration. Why wouldn't it? It's gorgeous. And if it means something to you, whether it represents beauty or opulence or your favorite color, your favorite stone, then great. So there's that aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it was when I started my spiritual development, I would pick a stone that I'd like. I'd kind of learn about it and I'd be like, okay, I don't know if soda light helps with opening the throat chakra or communication or expression, right? And that's one of the things that soda light is known for. I'm like, I don't know if that is the case, but let me, hold it in my hands and I'll meditate with it. Or a lot of times I would put like stones in my pockets, or stones in my purse. And those particular stones would hold a certain intention. They would hold a certain vibration. And that's how I started using stones the most. And that's how I do it to this day. Now, I don't do it the same way. I don't always carry stones around with me, but I did yesterday actually. And that kind of like ignited to talk about this. So I have like a black tourmaline bracelet that I wear a lot. I even have one in because this was the inspiration from yesterday. I put one in my pocket sometimes, and other times I put I really like selenite. So we gravitate to our favorites. And for me, it's really like a feeling thing mixed with an intention thing. And some people actually program their crystals. And I do believe that is quite possible. I do feel like when stones are in the rough, their structure can hold such energies to transform and transmute. Almost like it creates more of a charge, or you can like um, work with it actually like an alive, you know, piece of the earth. and you say, hey, I'm putting this energy into the stone, please hold it. So I do think it can get really, really technical, but definitely I think there's many different ways to use crystals. And for me, it was always about intention. And I know other people use crystals entirely differently. Um, the two stones that I really feel like, and again, feel what stones work for you. Everything works so differently for individuals. Sometimes there's overlapping feelings, and sometimes the feelings are totally independent of one another. Like, for instance, I'm wearing rose quartz, and this is one of my favorites. Like, I always felt like it's like a very soft and soothing, and open and loving vibration. And so that's the intention behind it, but the stone kind of actually feels like that for me too. And I think these are more like traditional things to talk about. How does the stone feel for you, and how does it amplify your intention? Um, so I was talking about black tourmaline and I was talking about selenite. Like, those definitely make me feel a certain way. Um, and I would say the black tourmaline makes me just feel very grounded, or it helps like to release energy so I can feel more grounded. And the selenite makes me feel super, it's again, it's a little bit like the rose quartz. It's like very soft and soothing, but there's something about the selenite where I feel like it provides a cleansing, almost like the black tourmaline, but a different type of cleansing. Because I feel, again, calmer, and it's like the black tourmaline almost strips away the physical energy, sometimes the emotional energy, but the the selenite strips away some of the emotional and balances the spiritual energy for me. Again, um, everyone has a different feeling. Like, I've talked to people who work with crystals a lot, and they're like, selenite, it's like a direct channel, for them. And it makes them actually amped up. Like, it makes them like alert. And they're just like, oh, I love selenite. It perks me up. I'm like, oh no, like it makes me calmer. Like, it feels like I'm underwater, right? And everything's kind of just, I don't know, a different feeling all around, like in the atmosphere. Uh, you're normally having air all around you. And when I hold selenite, it's like water's all around me. So quite different with how people feel. Hello, Debbie. Hello. Hello from the UK. Hello, hello. Oh, I love it when people stop by to say hi. I appreciate your love and sending love back. So, the most I do though is the intention. So I have a bunch of crystals all around me. You can't really see them, but I have a big hunk of black tourmaline. I have a jade like turtle dragon. Jade feels good to me. I have a bunch of different wonderful things sprinkled around here, and they all like raise my vibration, and they make me feel more like myself, or they make me feel more focused so I can feel like myself. And so I think that's very important, because a lot of people use crystals because of how they want to feel. Okay. So go to a crystal show if you can. Just start playing around with it, see how you feel. You're going to really like some things, you're going to not like some things. Maybe you're going to also feel like, I don't get it if somebody loves something, because your energy needs something totally different. And that's really true. I think, like, if you're an energy healer and it's just in the terms of, like, let's say Reiki or chakra balancing, or maybe some other energy modalities, you're gonna be like, wow, that person has a lot of grounding energy, right? And then other times with another person, you'll be like, wow, that person's like really up in the ethers, like they're a little flighty. And they operate on totally different spectrums, and they need actually totally different nourishment in order to balance themselves. So not all balance comes about the same way. Absolutely not. Um, oh, Courtney is saying, where's the best place to get crystals when you don't get out of the house a lot? That's fantastic. Well, um, that's a great question, because I really like to know, like, kind of in touch and pick my individual crystals. So I have just clear quartz, right? But I physically went to a store and they had 50, you know, terminated naturally raw quartzes, and I touched them all and felt them all. And I picked the two that every time I touched them, they almost like made my hands feel hot or they zapped me. And like that was a sign that I was taught, like, oh, that's like a hot crystal, right? And it's just like it's what your energy is responding to. Or sometimes I truly believe like a charged crystal is just a charged crystal, and yeah, like it can pack a punch. So I do like to like hold them and feel them, but I do know back in the day I actually could answer that because I knew people who owned crystal shops, and they would go to crystal dealers, and so they had people that they would frequent. But we're in a different era. So yeah, unless I know the crystal, I don't it's how it sounds like very interesting, unless I know the crystal dealers. But it's true. It's really important that you know who you're buying wholesale from, or the individual people, because some crystals are fake. They are. Or some crystals, let's say, aren't worth what they're asking the price, and that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. And definitely with my mom's background in like stones and the jewelry industry, I definitely learned about that very well. So I can find myself a good bargain. That's fun. Talk to people that can find you a good bargain, who really know about crystals. That's a crystal hot tip right there. But maybe some people already walk the world like that regularly. um she says, okay, I see a woman who does online lives, but she's in my area as in live videos. Okay, well, yeah, that is an avenue. That is an avenue. I would say look around. Look around. I'm a big fan of just going local, and just before you agree to anything, just price compare online. Like, please price compare online. That's that's something that I put out there for people who don't know about purchasing crystals and what things are truly worth. Um, yeah, I highly recommend that, because then if you like something and you say, "Oh yeah, this is like somewhat comparative," then why not go for it? With people you get offline, you're gonna have to pay additional shipping and handling. So just heads up with that. We're getting really technical. We're getting really technical. But what I do recommend is just like, hey, do your research, and then whether you go in person or online, start the journey there, and pick which crystals you like. That's like the simplicity in it. It really really has the simplicity behind it foremost. So, um, what I want to articulate, though, with what I've been talking about with the intention, was with crystals. For myself, they were in my pockets, or they were in my purse, or I place them in places around my house, and they start to have an intention. And really, all things within your space or your environment, optimally, I would imagine, should be encouraged to have an intention, because then you're essentially programming the energy of your space. And so you're living in one giant crystal, and you can argue that your body is one giant crystal too. Okay? Like, we're full of silica, and silica is a crystal. Um the earth, the core is full of silica too. It's a giant crystal inside the center of the earth. So we radiate these energy, and we're superconductors. So whether or not it's a traditional crystal, one that you really gravitate to, or it's actually objects as simple as a journal that holds a vibration for you, or a color that amplifies how you feel. Really start to associate with the things around you and what they do for you and how they serve you. Sometimes, yes, they serve more than just yourself. If you have an object or an environment that is designated for a family rather than an individual, but you can start to have conversations like, hey, like, do we really need this table anymore? Or, don't you feel like the room could really go for this color or that color? Because honestly, some people you might be sharing the space with, family members, or maybe if you have a roommate, if you have the flexibility to do so, they might actually not even associate with how they feel, or they're not even paying attention to their environment. So if you're very energy sensitive or environment sensitive, then have those conversations with people to amplify your environment, or give like suggestions, or do little things. And if you can't, like let's say you're living with your family and you only have a room or part of a room, because that's very real. um, Make that part of your room as much as yourself as you can. Make that part of the room feel like you, whether it's just a corner of the room, or whether it's like if you don't want people to know about like your spiritual side. Like, I really like to talk about color a lot. Like, put, a different bedspread on your bed. Put a couple of like little objects of, it doesn't even have to be a color. It could be your favorite TV show that makes you feel like $1,000,000, that, ignites your imagination galore. So, yeah, it's really, really important to talk about intention and vibration in these categories. And I probably will circle back to talking with crystals. It's like I use them and I don't use them. And every time I say I don't use them, I realize how much I use them. It's so funny like that. But yes. So we'll circle back to questions when we have Mari on. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, we have questions. Oh gosh, yeah, great questions about Himalayan sea salt lamps, and um, being attracted to rocks as a child. Oh my gosh, such great questions. And I want to include Mari in on them, with her experiences too, as well. So we will answer them. We're going to get around to them. Absolutely. I love those questions because I'm raring to go with those answers. And so we will be back in just a moment. I appreciate your love and interaction. We will see you with Mari in a few. Oh, that's on my end. Hello. So let's bring some muting is so fun. It really is. That was on my part. So let's bring in Mari. Hello. Hello. You're muted now. We're all muted.
Oh, there I am. Okay. You can hear me now, I hope.
Yes, perfectly, excellently.
Good.
Absolutely. Hello. Let me give everyone a chance to meet you. Let me introduce you with a warm welcome. We welcome Mari. I like to say welcome a lot today, but that's a great thing. So, Mari Cartagenova is a psychic medium, animal communicator, and best-selling author of Heaven Sent. Her gifts provide heartfelt messages from both living and past loved ones, humans, and fur babies. You can find Mari once a month on her live show Spirit Chat on Facebook, YouTube, and you'll find so on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So check that out, and welcome, Mari.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad. I was having a little technical difficulties in the beginning, so I'm glad that everything's worked out and you can hear me. And thanks for having me on.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, sometimes we dance with the technology, but we find our way.
Yeah, exactly.
I love those angel wings behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love them too. They're really, you can't probably tell the scale, but they're really big. They're, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet high. Yeah, and I love them. They just sort of, set the tone of the room. So.
Exactly. So we were talking a little bit about that earlier. So are angel wings really important to you, or do you have certain objects that just uplift you, and do you include them into your space or your home where you work, or you just are every day?
Yeah, exactly. And as you were talking, I was listening, and I have crystals all over my house too. And I was like picking them all up. I'm like, oh, I got these crystals everywhere. But I
Woo!
don't, like you were saying, I don't really think about it because they're just sort of part of my life. But definitely, you can't see behind you, but I have an altar and I have my incense and I have some Buddhas and a crystal singing bowl and things like that that just sort of set my space. But I definitely have crystals all over the house in certain corners and in certain, and it's just I've come to just be used to it. So I don't really think about it like you were saying, oh, I don't really work with crystals. And I was thinking, yeah, I don't, but they're a huge part of my life at the same time.
Absolutely. Same here. Same. It's like, wait a second. Oh my goodness. So when you started this work, did you start kind of putting your intention of I want to feel energy? And is that how, like, let's say your journey with crystals started, but then it just evolved where you didn't really, I guess, pay it the same attention? Or how did you originally use them? How did they come into your home
Yeah,
originally?
it's funny because a lot of times, and I tell people this, it's like a lot of times things just happen, or I do things like almost on autopilot. It feels like it's like spirit led. So it's not like I'm thinking, yes, I want to go get some more crystals. It's like I'm driving and I see a place. I'm like, oh, this is good. And where my oldest went to college, that just so happened, like there's no coincidence. There's this amazing crystal shop, up in Troy, New York, if you happen to be up in that area, and I just happened to find it and went in, and the woman is amazing, and her whole shop is just filled with crystals. So it was sort of incidents like that that led me to sort of fill up all my spaces with crystals. So it wasn't an intention; it was more of a spirit-led activity that really, put me in those places.
Absolutely. So, do you feel like from a young age, or whether it was a young adult, where did you start to understand that your life was spirit led?
Well, it's like I always tell people that I was born this way because my earliest memories, I mean, I'm talking about like maybe four or, little. When I was little, I just remember there being angels in my room and seeing spirit and talking to them. And, as a little kid, like that was normal. Like, this is like, of course, this is what everybody does because I'm little and this is what's happening to me. And so I just assumed that that was everybody's experience. And it was only until I got older when I realized, maybe this isn't happening to everybody. And they probably thought I was a little weird because that's what I was talking about. But it's really just been a part of my life, always. I read tarot cards when I was younger, like in middle school. And I just have always gravitated towards sort of working with spirit and having spirit in my life.
Did your friends and family find that like just the typical then, if that was just so normal for you?
I would say no. It was normal for me, but it wasn't normal for any of them. So I was always kind of the weird kid, and like I would talk to the trees and the plants, and my other schoolmates would be like, "What are you doing? That's so weird." And so I was kind of the weird kid, and and my family, it wasn't they were against it; they just didn't really understand it, and they're like, "Oh, whatever, that's your imaginary friend," or they really weren't in that world, so they didn't understand it. But for me, it's always been natural. And then obviously, as I grew older, I came to realize that it isn't part of everybody's world as so obviously as it was mine. And but of course, as you get older, you accept things and realize like, hey, actually, this is kind of cool, and maybe I'm not so weird after all. So.
It is very cool. So, seeing angels, you said that was very normal for you. Can you talk about your experience, like how they would come to you, or even how they felt or looked like for you?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, and I've had different experiences, but when I was little, I would always see just like orbs or almost like circling, like little circles of light. It was almost like little tiny stars that would rotate in a circle. And I would look up and I would see them and I'd be like, oh, my friends are here. And it's still kind of the same way if I see them. I'm like, oh, hi, friends. So that's sort of how it started out to me. But they always felt very much like a presence in my life. Like I remember, and it's just sort of coming back to me as you're talking about it. I must have been maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9. I was young. And I remember being at the playground and I was playing on the swings or something. It doesn't sound like a very interesting story, but I was messing around and I remember that I flipped backwards. And I swear to you, and it was pavement underneath. This is like in the 70s before they had the nice cushy, playgrounds they have now. And my head must have been
Oh
3 millimeters away from the cement. So I would have had a serious head injury. And I remember thinking, like, thank you, angels. Thank you, spirit, for protecting me. Cause I just knew that, like, I was so protected because had it been, it was literally, I remember my hair scraping the pavement. And I'm like, oh
wow.
my God. And that's just that feeling has just sort of always been like a part of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely am a believer of, we're protected, and sometimes we can feel that protection, and other times we're like, just I'll build that relationship because I invite this into my life, right? I want to invite this into
Yes.
my life. So over you said they feel the same way, but over the years, have you had any, like, I guess, different experiences that gave you perspective of, wow, okay, I'm feeling like they're like this now and they do this for me and this is my relationship.
Yeah, and you do the work. So I think as, anyone that's sort of in this field, it evolves a little bit. And so I think, I've done some work with Tony Stockwell and like trance mediumship. And so if you get more sort of involved into that space, the feelings are, at least for me, more pronounced and more and closer and stronger. So when I'm sort of working in that realm where I really set my intention on connecting with angels or connecting with with spirit guides or anything, that connection is a lot stronger. So I still feel it the same way, it's just levels of strength. It's like when I go to the grocery store, I kind of shut everything off. I'm like, I don't want to deal with anything, I just want to get my groceries and get out of here. Versus when you're working and you open up to things, and depending upon what you're working on at the moment, like the trance is very strong, at least for me. And that just sort of brings that connection a lot stronger for me when I'm working in that space, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. So, if you can relate to, if I'm out and about, unless something really catches my eye, I kind of course, I affirm the protection. So, thank you, angels and
Yeah.
guides. But in a way, it's almost like you check out a little bit more because you're so used to checking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like my husband, he'll sometimes people watch and he's like, "You didn't notice that?" I'm like, "No, I was no, I didn't notice. I'm not actively looking at people." And he's like, "How did you not notice that?" Right?
Right,
I'm
right.
just 'cause
Well, I think it
I
just
think,
depends
yeah.
on I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just saying I think sometimes, we people can experience the world very differently depending on how much they normally pay attention to people and energy.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. And it, like I was saying, it depends. Certain spaces I'm in, I know the energy is going to be really overwhelming for me, like the grocery store. If I go to the mall, which I try to avoid because there's just too much energy for me, and I just feel like the whole time I'm there. So if I'm in a place like that, on purpose set the intention to surround myself with white light and energy to protect myself, because I am so susceptible to sort of taking all that, excuse me, all that energy in. But when I'm like out and about in nature or whatever, I definitely try to be open and aware, just to sort of take things in, and also to like to receive whatever messages they want to send me. Because sometimes, like if I'm out and about and I'm so super focused on, picking up the raspberries or whatever I'm doing, I might miss a message that they might be trying to send me. And so it's sort of a balance between being closed off for your own protection and being open to receive whatever is out there.
Absolutely. Do you ever, like, think about having a notebook, or do you put, like, notes in your phone? Because sometimes just the downloads, you're like, "Oh, that was so good. That was so good."
Yes, definitely. I have, I'm old. I'm a lot older than you. And if I don't write it down, it's like it never happened. So I have sort of like all my notes on my phone, and I have like physical notebooks that I write things down. So yeah, I definitely do try to take notes whenever things happen to me because, as I go through experiences and the more work that I do, there's more and more experiences. And people say, "Oh, tell me a story." And I'm like, well, I know there are lots of them. I just don't, even when I'm in doing readings, I'm not like holding on to the information. It's like I get the information and then it goes out and that's it. People say, well, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. So I have to take notes and write things down because otherwise I don't really remember.
Yeah. I yes, absolutely. Retain, it's funny. It's like, "Oh, it's like, that was so beautiful. Okay, let's just." It's like inspirations for posts are all around if you want one, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So I wanted to know too, even though this was something from a very young age and you said, people didn't necessarily encourage it or understand it, and then I really embraced it. When did you start to, because you've studied and trained with different people, when did you want to step out and say, I think this is what I want to do with my life?
Well, it's an interesting question because I've had this connection and I've like, I would talk to people telepathically or I would know who's on the phone. Like all of that stuff was just happening in my life on a regular basis. So I knew it was there, but I guess because of societal pressures and maybe my family, I was like, okay, well, I can't do this. Like, this is not like, this would be weird. I cannot do this. So I ended up going to graduate school. I got my master's degree in social work and I worked as a therapist for many years, which does have a lot of similarities for anybody, that in this type of work, because I think I was using my intuition at that point anyway to connect with my clients and sort of feel what they weren't necessarily saying to me. And so I was doing that for a while, and then I had my kids, and then as my kids started to get older, I just kept getting messages from the spirit world. From like, I had a reading with this famous medium in the UK, and he said to me like, "Oh, well, you're supposed to be doing this work," and I was like, "Yeah, right." Like, what are you even saying? Like, that's no. So I didn't believe him, and then my grandmother passed away, and my aunt passed away, and they both came to me and like said, "Oh, you're supposed to be doing this work." And apparently I'm stubborn. I don't know. I don't think I am, but apparently I am. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, whatever." And I kept getting messages like this. And then at one point, I was going to Florida with my daughter, and we happened to be in the airport, like in Orlando, and like if you've ever been to the restroom there's like a million stalls, right? So I was in the restroom, and I walk into one of the stalls, and just sitting there, in the stall was one tarot card that just said
Wow.
trust. And
Wow.
I literally like took the card, I looked up and I said, "Okay, I get it." So when that happened, I was just like, "Fine, I guess I'll do it." So it wasn't like I really sought it out. It almost sought me out in a sense. And I think it needed to wait until I was older and sort of more able to accept what was going on for it to really flourish. And then I started studying with everybody and working, and then it just kind of took off from there.
And so you are a psychic medium and animal communicator. Those are some of your two main things, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
How did you learn about animals starting to come into the readings, or how did you define yourself after you went, okay, I'm supposed to do this? How did you go, okay, this is where I've been led to?
Right. Well, I started just working, training with different people, working in circles, and just sort of like, following the roadmap, I guess, as it were, and sort of learning and figuring out where I needed to be. And the animal piece, in terms of the mediumship and the psychic work, and then, a lot of it's just, I wouldn't say it came easily, but it's just sort of always been a part of me, if that makes sense. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was trying to reach for something that was like, I'm not a ballerina. So like I wasn't trying to like get on my toe shoes or anything. It was kind of always there. It was just more bringing it out and then working with the animals. I don't know, at some point someone must have said to me, well, oh, well, animal communication is really hard. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't really try to do it for a while. And then I started to think about it because, we have animals and very connected to animals. And I thought, well, why would it be any harder than working with spirit, than working with people? And so I just sort of started to work with them to say, I'd say, okay, fine, I'll do a reading on a dog. And then as I was doing it, they just started talking to me. And I was like, okay, well, this actually isn't really any harder than working with people, at least for me. And I just sort of started working in that way. And that's been a really great part of my work.
And if I may ask, how do animals communicate different than humans with their experience of their time with their loved ones?
Well, it's interesting. With people, I always say like I'm not afraid of the dead people. It's really more of the living that I'm afraid of because we as humans, have like greed or guilt or all these negative emotions. Animals don't really have that. And I really, in some ways, enjoy working with the animals better because they're just so honest. They're just so honest about their feelings and about what's going on. Um, and so, in terms of working with them and how they relay their experiences, I just find it to be a cleaner snapshot of what's been going on. And for me, it's just easier almost to understand what the animals are talking about than sometimes the people. Because sometimes the people will come in and they'll say A and they really mean B, or
Yes.
that may have had that experience. But the animals don't do that.
Yeah, I find so we're always learning in this work, and I
Yeah.
have animals that come to me, and I'm aware how the vibration is so simple, and I go, wow, this is so simple. I'm not aware of all the emotion, so I go, oh, it's so simple. Okay. It's like I can't it's like it's a completely different way to read, you know what I mean? Completely
Hmm.
different way to read. So like with the human stuff, I'm like, oh, I can follow that trail. That seems a little messy. I can follow that trail, even though that sounds a little odd. I'm like, oh, that's very human, right? It's so
Yeah.
very human, right? But so like with the simplicity of the animal world, how are you guided with the information?
Well, for me, I honestly read animals and people the same way. I mean, when I'm working with animals, I usually have my clients send me a picture just because they say they want a reading of Fluffy. Fluffy could be a dog or a boa constrictor, and I
Mm,
don't want my human brain to get involved. So I just get a picture from them. But they come to me in the same way. Like, I'm very clairvoyant, so I see things, energetically. And for me, everything comes on my left side. So I spend most of my time sort of looking to my left and seeing everything as they drop it in. They just drop in, pictures or images. Sometimes I'll get feelings of things, or sometimes they'll like draw a word for me that I will see. So that's how I get most of my information, and that's how it works for people or pets. They come in the same way for me.
yeah. Okay, so they just start talking to you, you know? It just
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah, exactly, pretty much, or they'll be like, and it sounds bad, but I have had pets that tell me they don't like their owners. Or I was talking about, there was a story, I'm working on there's another book that I'm working on, and maybe I shouldn't tell the story because I think it's going to be in the book, but there are animals, and we have horses. So if you have horses, they don't always necessarily stay in the same family, and they might get sold, or because it's a little bit of a bigger deal to take care of a horse than it is a cat. And so I remember talking to a horse that had two different owners, and this horse had completely different takes on each owner. And even when I saw the photo of this horse from two different people, and this was months apart, they didn't know they were both contacting me. The photo looked completely different. Didn't even look like the same horse. Because when I was reading it, I'm like, you kind of look similar, but I think it must be a different horse. And it was only after I talked to the second person who said, "Oh yeah, that is the same horse." And I was like, "Wow," because the horse was telling me completely two different stories of each owner.
100%. That makes sense. That makes sense. It's just I find it so fascinating. They're like, "Yeah, didn't like that person."
Right. I mean, not in a mean way, just like we didn't get along. I haven't had them, they're not like swearing at me or anything, but they'll be like, yeah, they didn't know how to take care of me, or we didn't have a connection, or things like that. And I think some people are just surprised to like, really? But, animals have feelings, they have souls just like we do. And, they have preferences. So I think they deserve the same respect that people do, honestly.
Are you ever picking up on if animals have like goals? Or I know that love is so important and connection is so important, and there's gratitude in that, but did they ever have like goals or something like kind of unique that you go, oh wow, I never experienced the animal to want this or maybe prefer that in a certain way, and it's almost a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, our animals are here to sort of help us as humans be the best version of ourselves. So I haven't had an animal say, I really want to be a DJ, or I haven't heard anything like that. But I definitely have animals that prefer certain foods or prefer certain people one over the other. But in terms of their goals, what they've always told me is like they want to help their human. they want to help whichever human they're bonded with, not necessarily everybody in the house. Or there may be person A that wants to snuggle them and they're like, get away from me. You are not my human. I want to be with this other person and sort of support them and help them through whatever they're going through. And that's really what I found, the job of the animals are, is to sort of be there for us. Because even though people will say, oh, dumb dog, or they're so stupid, it's like, I think in a lot of ways they are more elevated and more evolved than we are in so many different ways. And so they're here to sort of help us as almost tutors or guides.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so with animals, like let's say that don't have a companion, how do they navigate the world, or how do they optimally live? Um, do you find that there's any, I guess, independent agents that come through?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly animals that are like in shelters that haven't found their human, that's sad. And maybe that process just hasn't happened yet. Maybe they haven't been able to connect to their person yet. There certainly are, and I certainly have clients that I've talked to that sometimes they believe their animal is a reincarnation like of their dad or their sister or something like that. I know that might be a little controversial and not everybody believes in that, but I certainly have had people tell me that, and I personally believe that because I believe we're all souls, and it doesn't matter if, I always say, like, this is the outfit that we're wearing this time around. And when we come back, we get a different outfit. It could be furry, it could be feathered, it could be anything. I know not everybody believes in that, but that's sort of where I hold with everything. And I do feel like our animals are here for us to help us evolve and teach us so many things all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are some of your favorite experiences in reading when connecting to people or animals?
There's so many. It's like depending upon who I'm connecting with, sometimes they'll be wondering like, oh, I want to know what's going to happen in my future or whatever. But if I'm talking to their animal, sometimes they'll be referring to something that happened in the past. Like I was reading this dog, this woman was she was having a mixed reading. Sometimes I'll do that, like a psychic reading and connect with their animal. I don't mind doing that. And she had this dog and she was asking me these questions, but while she was asking me, the dog kept showing me his fingernails. And I was like, I know you want answers to these other questions, but the dog just kept showing me the fingernails. And I was like, I don't think it's about cutting them or that they have a problem. There's some piece, like I was seeing this little girl and I was seeing these dogs' fingernails. And I was like, what is going on with them? There's something different about them. And the lady just started laughing and she's like, oh, yeah, that's my granddaughter. And when she comes over, she likes to paint the nails of my dog, like with nail polish. And so that's what I was seeing. And so I know they were asking me for, we definitely got to the whole the interpretation of the future later, but I feel like I sort of have to honor wherever spirit is and wherever spirit, whatever they want to tell me. So, stories like that, or there was another story about this cat that, I was reading and the cat had passed away because I do animals that are here or past. And when I was talking to this lady, she's this lovely older lady, and the cat's name was Baby or something like that. But the cat kept showing me a picture of a blueberry. So I'm like, okay, so does the cat like blueberries? Do you eat blueberries? And so, I'm doing a reading. I'm like, I don't know, this is what I'm seeing. And I don't always interpret it right. But I was telling the woman, I'm seeing this blueberry. And the lady just started crying. And she's like, well, that was the cat's name before I got it from the shelter. The cat's name was
Aw.
Blueberry. And so she was talking about her owner that had passed away, and then she ended up at the shelter. And so, the animals and people are, always telling me unusual things, which is what makes it fun.
This is super fun. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's dip into some questions. We have a variety of them. So let's see. I'm gonna do. We'll start with like an animal one. Pets always seem, it's comments that inspire questions too. Pets always seem very in tune with their owners. Guess it makes sense that we can reciprocate that. How do you find that? Whether it's like similar personality traits or the animals, how they know to be so in tuned naturally.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times our animals will like pick up what we're giving off. That's sort of part of it. And so just say you're having a really bad day, or you're feeling really anxious, and you come home and like you are carrying that energy, your animal will automatically, in a lot of cases, pick up on that. Like I know if I come home and then my cats start going crazy and they're running all over the place, I was like, okay, wait a second. What are you mirroring to me? Because that's what the animals do a lot is they'll mirror like, okay, this is what I'm seeing you're showing me, and this is like a mirror. So you can take a look at yourself and what's going on and be like, okay, what is going on with me? What do I need to take care of right now? And I find that animals do that a lot in terms of the feelings. And in terms of like finding us, it's like I always feel like that's spirit led. Spirit puts us where we need to be or gives us the animals that we need at that moment. And since I do deal with animals that have crossed over, it's like people say, well, why? Why did my animal die? He was only 3. And,
Oh,
depending upon the situation, sometimes the animal will like take a bullet for us. I've found, they will like, if there's something going on in your life, or there's maybe a potential illness that you had, the animal can sometimes sort of take that from you. And I know that may sound a little bit crazy, but I've
no,
seen that
no.
time and time again because that's how much they love us and that's how much they want to help us.
I do agree with that. I've seen like how can I put this? Like with families, sometimes certain family dynamics, like the interplay of that, the sharing of energy will I guess harmonize the energy of a household. But like let's say someone goes to college or somebody moves out or maybe
Yeah.
someone passes away, the complete dynamic of the family shifts. And so since there's a different energy present, and then the animals will absorb and feel whatever energy is present. So an animal can become more anxious or more
Yep.
depressed or even have physical issues that come up that were never the case before. I do think that's very real.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. It's sort of like if someone's experiencing something in their life and it's making them really anxious, that can lead to physical problems. Your emotions, if you're stressed out all the time, it's no surprise that your body might react in that way. And it's the same thing for the animals. The animals, like you were saying, are usually picking up on energy from their humans.
Absolutely. Like I love how you put that with life being a mirror and animals like really amplify that mirror.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I was
Chris,
looking through the comments too.
if you have a question that you want to take, go for it. I invite you to. I see
Okay.
Christine's. I'll take that one next, unless you have one that you really are vibing.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. I was just scrolling through.
There's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah, I'm trying to
sprinkling.
figure out where are we starting? Am I at the top, in the middle? Like, oh, let's see.
Everything. You can scroll. I do that. I just scroll up and down until something catches my eye. Christine's asking, how did you study for your gifts, and who do you recommend?
Okay. I studied, well, my feeling was if I'm going to study, I might as well study with the best people because, especially in the world of the internet and everything, you can have access to the best people. So I first started out just going to local circles in my local area. I live in New England, and there are different types of circles that you could join, like practice circles or sort of working with local teachers. And then after that, I just started to branch out. I studied with Lisa Williams over at the Omega Institute, which is in New York, and she's fabulous, of course. Tony Stockwell, who I love. Tony, if anyone knows Tony, he's fabulous. He's from the UK, but he comes over here a lot, and I've studied multiple. I've done many year mentorships with him. John Holland is local, so I studied with him as well. Thomas John. So there's a lot of different teachers out there, and especially now with Zoom and everything, everybody seems to be accessible, and they offer so many different classes and things. But if it's something that you're interested, I would recommend just sort of checking out what's in your local area. I mean, obviously, I don't know where everybody is, but there usually is some sort of metaphysical shop somewhere around, or if not, there's definitely practice circles online to get started in that way as well. Because, like I always tell people, I'm not magical. Anybody can do this. It's just a matter of sort of practicing and working on your gifts.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you still are magical, but
Well, well, I don't know. Maybe my kids think I am. I don't know, but
I think if you bring it into your life enough, well, you're magical. You're radiating magic. So another question is, how do you put aside your own fears um, or religious convictions slash beliefs and allow yourself to take on the spirit studies or your spiritual studies?
Yeah, I see that. That's an interesting question because I know that certainly for some people that comes up. For me, I was never really very religious, so it wasn't something that I had to put aside, but I certainly know some people learn like, this is the devil's work, or, certainly I'll get comments sometimes saying,
Yeah,
this is evil or whatever. But I wasn't brought up in any of those type of traditions. So for me, I didn't really have to set anything aside. And, I don't know. I've just never really been afraid of it. I guess because since I've had it in my life since I was very little. And to me, it just always feel like connecting with spirit and that energy just always feels like a warm hug, just being in the silence and sort of connecting with your soul self and letting it rise. And I just never really had any fear about that. So that's just not hasn't been my experience.
absolutely, absolutely. Connecting to your soul self, it feels like a warm hug. I think that is something so important because a lot of the things on earth are like constructs or perspectives of the divine. But when we are connected to
Yeah,
our soul self, we start to experience life in a very different way and we make very different decisions because of that. And that, for me, strengthened how the way that I understood religion and spirituality together just for myself. So, but, yeah, I like that. It feels like a warm hug.
it does.
Okay. So let's go back to the top actually, because there were some fun
Okay.
questions. Oh, where are they? Okay. So, for both of us, what do you know about Himalayan sea salt lamps? I think this is a fun one. Or like salt or how you use it within your environment, if you like it or not, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I have one lit right over there, and I think actually I was looking at this thinking it was rose quartz, but I actually don't think it is. I think it's a hunk of sea salt.
It might just
And
be.
it's funny that this question came up because I was just looking, where I am, and I'm not sure. I think in other places in the country they have the Himalayan salt caves that you
Yes.
can go and just like hang out in, and they play like meditation music. And if you have one in your area, highly recommend. It's very cool. I personally find it very detoxifying and just being in that vibe and being surrounded by so much salt. I mean, having a little salt lamp obviously isn't going to clear your entire house, but I think for a small room or having crystals and like the sea salts around is very helpful. I also think if you take a bath, bathing in the salt, like the magnesium, the natural salt, not the scented or the colored or anything like that, but the totally natural is very detoxifying for, your body, mind, and spirit. So I definitely love working with the salts.
Absolutely, we take on so much stuff, so cleansing,
Yeah,
releasing,
exactly.
and go to a salt cave, everyone, if you haven't been to one.
Yeah,
There's a lot of, salt caves in certain areas, like in cities that don't even advertise themselves as salt caves. They may be a wellness center or, certain therapy centers that will use actually, what they do is they take salt and they pump it through the vents in a certain room, and sometimes,
right.
their therapies for people who have asthma even,
Hmm.
and you can get access to that, so it doesn't look like a salt cave, but it works exactly the same way, and you surround yourself in this purified room and you absorb the salt, and it's just so many benefits. I'm a fan. Like, my room always smells good. I have a lamp in here right now. What's not to love? I don't even turn it on, it just is good.
Yeah, it's true because like you said, as you absorb so many things and you don't think about it. But, trying to put your conscious mind into, all right, I want to try to detox. And if you try to do that in terms of a bath or having some salts around your room, you'll see the difference energetically. Like might sound weird, but it's like you're sort of covered in schmutz, you're energetic, like junk on your energy. But if you're able to sort of, have some sea salt or crystals or, I'm like surrounded by crystals right now and sort of connect to that energy, it really does sort of slough off some of that, like toxic debris that you might have sort of gotten just by being out in the world.
Absolutely. It's a thing, you know? It's like we talk about some of these stories or concepts and it's like it might sound weird, but then
But
it's it's very much reality. Like it's no longer weird for me or for Mari. It's just like
yeah, exactly. It's true.
how we survive and function optimally.
Yeah.
Someone is asking about their heart chakra and if they have like a blockage they feel in their heart chakra, what's best to do, or what would you recommend about learning about that energy or releasing that?
Yeah, well, there's lots of different ways to do that. Sometimes people will go through all of their chakras and spin them a certain way. There's all these different ways to do things, and I'm definitely not the expert on that. But I think if you're feeling a blockage, especially in the heart chakra, getting some rose quartz is great because that is connected to your heart chakra. Yes, I see. It's awesome. I know I have some around here, but I did find my jade when you were talking
Ooh.
about your jade. But for the heart chakra, rose quartz definitely, and maybe even some amethyst. And you just might spend some time either in meditation, or if you're not like a meditator, 'cause I say meditation and people just roll their eyes like, oh God. But it doesn't mean you have to sit there and om like a monk for a half an hour. You can, just sit quietly. You can lie down in bed. And I like to take the crystal and sort of put it over whatever chakra I want to clear and just sort of set that intention and just imagine that energy sort of drawing down to that area and spinning and allowing yourself to sort of clear whatever you feel is blocking you there. Um, and another thing I recommend for something like that, usually if there's some issues with the heart, sometimes there's some hurt, some suffering, some trauma that perhaps we haven't sort of let go of yet. And, that's for everybody. Everybody, you don't get out of this life without having some trauma. So, what I would recommend for that is just, take a pen and paper and start writing. Write about things maybe that are upsetting you or things that are on your mind. And once you sort of get all that out, then you can either take it and bury it, you can burn it, but you have to be able to release it somehow. And by doing that, you're sort of getting some of that stress off of that heart chakra and allowing yourself to open up a little bit more. So I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. And I love you're rocking pink and you held up some
Yes.
jade.
I know, because you were talking about colors, and I'm very, conscious on what I put on. I mean, every day, especially if I'm going to be live, definitely. But even, if I'm feeling maybe, and I'm in New England, it's dark and gross, and we're getting another snowstorm
Oh
here.
no. Oh
Ugh,
no.
that's another story. So being here in the winter sucks, and it is not great. So I try to wear bright, cheerful colors because the colors definitely affect your frame of mind. At least it does for me. And I definitely recommend that if you're feeling kind of blue, don't put on blue. Put on a yellow or an orange or something that's gonna just brighten you. And even though it might sound hokey, it really does affect sort of how we interact with the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you have like a lot of wonderful green glowing around you too, so you're doing something good. Um,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Someone was talking about when they even talk to like bugs when they connect to animals. They say they talk to everything.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And when I'm out in nature, connecting with trees or, the plants or whatever, I always say thank you. Maybe that's me because I'm weird, but I don't know. I always feel like I want to be thankful of my environment and the nature or the animals. I mean, where I live, even though it is gross and snowy, we do have a lot of wildlife. And so whenever, my kids will say, oh, mom, there's some friends in the yard, usually some deer or something, and just sort of connecting with that energy and being like, thank you for coming, and seeing if there's some message in that. Like if there's three deer, maybe the number three is connected, or maybe, they're staying a little while, or maybe they're on a certain place on my property and they're trying to give you a message. Because wildlife, animals in general, but definitely wildlife, if they're coming and they come sort of over and over again, they usually have some type of message for you, something to be aware of, something they're trying to point out to you. So I would, sort of pay attention to that if you can.
Absolutely. I love that. The number of the animals too. Absolutely. Someone's
For sure.
also asking about like guides. Can their mom be their guide, or even like with animals, how there are guides?
100%. Yes, absolutely. For me, I think it can be anything. Could be animals, can be angels, could be, your spirit guides. For me personally, like I was talking about my grandmother and my aunt, it's like I have my whole line of my family that are just sitting on my left all the time, talking to me. Sometimes they're fighting with each other. So for me, I have a lot of my family members as my guides, and I have other angelic guides, as well. But absolutely, could be an animal, could be like a spirit, it could be, something from the earth, could be like, a fairy or a nymph, or it could be anything. So it's not just, it doesn't just have to be a person or an angel. It could be a multitude of things. Whatever you feel is resonating with you, that's what it is for you.
I think, yeah, there's many types of different guides, and certain things come to us to help open up parts of ourselves. Absolutely. So it
Yeah.
can be quite multifaceted at times. Someone is talking, Angela. I should be saying names. Sorry, I've been saying someone's a lot today, y'all. So Angela is and that last question was from Courtney. Angela was talking about how she talks. I know she does. She's talking about, I swear my dog communicates with me telepathically. I'm gonna say that you know that, Angela, because I can feel you on that. But can you talk about your experiences where you're really having these moments where you hear, the communication going on within your mind, and it's something where it's just so palpable with your animal, with your fur baby.
Yeah, it's funny because, it's just like a doctor doesn't operate on his own child, so people say, "Oh, what are your animals saying to you?" I mean, my animals certainly talk to me, but it's different than if it was somebody else's. For me, it's almost like just a natural thing. Like I have 3 cats, and they're, in various ages and stages of life, and, I have one that's very grumpy, and I have one that's the baby, and the one that hides all the time. So I just feel them and I hear them talk to me all the time. So I'm sort of just always having this long conversation with them. But it really depends, because sometimes, like I was saying, if it's somebody else's animals, it's almost a little bit stronger because I'm
Yeah.
not connected to them. And that's why I try not to do readings for like people, my friends and things like that, because I don't want any of that information. I want to go in completely blind. And I find I almost get like the best information that way. But in terms of my own animals, I guess because I live with them, they're always sort of talking to me, and I'm always getting like, one of my cats is always snarky. He's always giving me snarky comments. So he's like, really, please.
And some of them like to be like, I have the sweetest boy cat, but he is like such a bossy boy and he loves it. Like,
Yeah, of
he's like,
course.
I don't care what you have to say. Like, just watch me. And I'm just like, dude, like, is that necessary?
No, it's true because they have personalities like we do. Just like some people and humans are a pain in the butt. Some animals are that way too. And I know at least our cat, he doesn't do it to be mean, but he just like it's almost like a dominance thing. Like I'll have a glass of water or something on the table, and he'll just look at me dead in the eye, and he'll knock it off, and he'll be like, "And like
Ooh.
sounds like a you problem." Like that's just how he is. He's just like, and my other cats would never do that, but he's like, yeah, whatever, too bad for you. But that's just his personality. So I'm like, oh, did you do that again? So you have to
It's
work with what you have.
You have to work with it. It's just correct. You have to work with what you have. Yeah, it's just them, and I think it teaches us to be very accepting. It's like it's not a slight. It's just who they are. Um, oh, can you with that in mind? So, to validate some people, I guess having experiences. What is an experience that you had like telepathically with an animal, like early on, that helped make you understand? Oh, this is real. Like this is definitely real.
Well, it's funny because if I'm thinking about when I was younger, I didn't have any pets. So I didn't really have a lot of interaction with animals when I was younger. But I do remember going to the zoo, which I'm not a big fan of, and just feeling like how sad these animals were. Just like, oh, they're, not just the fact that they're locked behind a cage, but if you're an elephant in a zoo, clearly you'd rather be in the wild in Africa, or in some conservation site. And so I do remember as a young child going and just feeling so sad and sort of having that sad energy of the animals connect to me. And I was like, well, I don't understand. Why are they locked up? So I do have experiences like that. And just from having all these feelings connected to animals or angels or people, it's like I knew it was real. It just took me a little while to get there on a conscious level.
But then when it opened up, it opened up.
Exactly. They say
Absolutely.
when you're in the right place, things just, happen. Not like I just sat back and did nothing, but when you're sort of going in the right direction, things open up for you. And if you find yourself going in a direction and everything is just closed, 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 closed for a long period of time, then sometimes it means you're not going in the right direction.
It's true. It's true. Like there's a degree of naturalness.
Yes.
Um yeah, and you can't force things too much. You just have to understand them more than, lead. Absolutely. So I want to ask you too, where can people find you, and do you have any classes going on that people can be a part of too coming up, or events?
Thanks for asking. Well, the best place to find me is, well, all of my social medias are Mediumari, Mediummari. So my website is mediummari.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all those places under Mediummari. So you can find me there. You can find me, on my website. In terms of classes, I do offer like an intro to animal communication class and an intro to like your psychic senses class. I'm thinking of offering that probably in the spring. So that's something that I do offer. I do, like you mentioned, I have my spirit chat show that is on Thursdays once a month at 3 o'clock, usually the third or fourth Thursday of the month. And we do lots of readings on there and cover different topics, whether it's space clearing or animal communication or astrology or, could be anything. And then I do lots of different appearances like this, in my local area on, the radio and things like that. So, and I do offer a mentorship as well. It's on my website. Sorry, I forgot about that.
No, hey, put it all out there. And,
Yeah.
you talk about how you cover multiple topics. I was thinking too, you have 8s too as well, like, you usually have, like, 3 8s, correct? Like,
On
connected
my
to
Instagram, yes, I just saw that comment. On an Instagram, because there was already a Medium Mari, can you believe it? So I'm on Instagram, I'm Medium Mari 888. But all my other places, I think it's just Medium Mari. So yeah, absolutely. So if you put in Medium Mari 888, I should come up on Instagram. Otherwise, you can just check out my website, mediummari.com, and I have all my socials on the bottom. You can click and it will take you directly. But yeah, we try to keep things moving. I have a gallery, I think it's coming up in March that I'm going to be working with somebody else. All of my stuff is on my events page on my website. Honestly, I don't even remember most of it. So I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Oh, that's right, I
it's
forgot.
the new year, it's like it
I
it
know
it
about it.
it bum rushed us. We're here, but sometimes we're like, "Wow, it's January already."
I know, it's so true. I feel like I'm back in July. Like I want to just work on my garden. I want it to be sunny. So, hopefully soon.
You need, like, to go to somewhere, like,
I
vacation-wise to break it up.
do. I do. It's so dark and because were you in California?
Orange County? Yeah,
Oh,
so
nice. Okay. Yeah. So it's sunny there. Here it's just dark at 4 o'clock and we're getting another snowstorm. So don't recommend New England if you're not a big snow fan, but here
I
I
do love
am.
I do love the snow, but yeah, it's been raining a lot, but I like that too. I like the
Yeah.
elements as long as people are
Yeah.
safe for the most
Yeah,
part.
exactly. For
It's
sure.
like, "Everyone please just be safe." I like thunder and lightning, no one gets struck by lightning, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely not. But you won't have any snow out there, so that's good.
No, yeah, but, my family's from the Midwest, so every year, like, during the holidays, I'm usually over there,
Oh,
absorbing snow and getting, punched with the cold, so I can understand.
right. Yeah, being like, thank goodness I don't live here anymore.
It's yeah, yeah. I would say I appreciate not being cold all the time, but I don't know, it's like homey, you know what I mean? But I understand.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah, we lived in LA for a long time, so we did the reverse. So I kind of miss being out there, but you know,
You're gonna have to again plan a trip.
I
It's due
know. I think
whether
I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna have to. Winter is like 6 months over here, so you know.
I think it will be nothing but positive. I'm just seeing like all these daisies when I'm talking
Oh,
about vacationing with you,
thank
and that's
you.
like
That
connected
sounds
to
great.
no, yeah, it's connected to like loved ones are approving that. You know what I mean? So
Yay!
it's
I
like, let's do
know.
it.
All right,
Um,
let's do it. Hawaii, here I come.
green light.
That's right.
So I always give guests to the last word of something they would like to share from their heart or spiritual wisdom they'd like to pass on. It could be anything at all. A sentence, a poem. People get creative.
Okay. Well, it just sort of as you were talking, I think what's really important, and we're talking about the new year, is just self-care. And I know everyone's like, oh, self-care, self-care. But I mean, honestly, for me, self-care at some point was like 5 minutes. Like I get to go to the bathroom without somebody harassing me. So, but that is not self-care. That doesn't count. Any moms out there, especially. Self-care is really spending time. Like, and I know if you're a mom, it's hard. It's hard to have that time. But even if you can give yourself an hour or an hour a day, or maybe not an hour a day, it might be asking too much if you have little kids, but whatever time you can eke out and carve into your schedule, whether it's working out, making sure you eat healthy, just like literally sometimes I will just go outside even though it's freezing here, and just breathe in the air, be in the sun, take some of that time, and don't be on your phone all the time. That is not good, but just sort of being in the moment, being in the elements, and sort of settle within yourself and spend that time taking care of yourself. Because I know almost everybody, I know they get up and they have the coffee and they go and they're just taking care of everybody all day long, and they come home and they're exhausted and there's nothing left for them. So really try to make a plan for self-care. Anything that sort of lights your fire, that gives you a spark, try to work that into your schedule. It's really important. And, I will leave you with that.
Find your spark. Self care is paramount. You heard it
Yes.
from Mari, and thank you so much for being on the show today. We appreciate you. And seriously, thank you. So, with that said, everybody, with a smile and, energy straight from Mari, we're going to go with love, luck, light, and don't forget to love everybody and laugh and live. Apparently, I can't can't keep track of my L's, but don't forget to live. That's what I'm saying. It's January. We're just coming up to speed with everything. So
Exactly.
take care, everybody. Thank you so much, Mari.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.